Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Trading Brains. I'm your host, Evan Greif, here with my co-host.
Oh, waiting for me.
Yeah, kind of waiting on you. Normally I say it, and then you feel like, oh,
Oh,
Evan.
really? I thought it was all the way around.
Starting off with a bang, you guys. Starting off with a bang.
And,
I figured this time I would let Angelo introduce himself, but I didn't make that abundantly clear to you, so my bad. Angelo's here. CJ's here as our guest again. CJ Nelson, welcome back to the show. Last time we talked about comic books and writing, and today we're going to cover comics a little more in depth. Uh, and so, CJ, tell us what you've brought to the table.
Well, as the
Today.
resident expert of all things Swamp Thing, I guess we'll start off there. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, DC Comics was like the main theme, I guess, and then
yeah, it's a DC Vertigo comic. Starting out in 1971 was the first issue. Oh, well, House of Secrets number 92 was the first appearance of the Swamp Thing, and it did surprisingly well considering that it was pretty out there to have just this like I don't know, this plant-based monstrous being,
just something that seems like it would come out of Scooby Doo.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even when you look at him, he kind of looks like a really like. I mean, obviously now that art, comic drawing and all that stuff has gotten more detailed and a lot better. But when you go back to 1971, I mean, you would think that he was just wearing a mask and is not,
or someone's on shrooms.
or someone's on shrooms and
Or they're just like wearing a bunch of shrubbery.
But yeah, so he made his first appearance in Has Secrets 92, and they first, like, his first name was Alec Olson. And it did, like I said, it did surprisingly well, but they never really followed it up until 1972 with Swamp Thing #1, and they changed his name to Alec Holland. And I guess, like, with his backstory, it's like it's pretty interesting actually because I'll get into all that, but with his backstory, it really started as Alec Holland was a well, I wouldn't say he was a botanist, but he was a well-renowned scientist, and he was the lab exploded.
Louisiana, right?
Yeah, in Louisiana, and the lab exploded. And in panic, because he was doused in chemicals and on fire, he jumped into the swamp, and he emerged as a Swamp Thing. But the best part about it was they lead you to believe, oh, this is Alec Holland, but Alec Holland was dead, and due to the chemicals and like I guess the well, no, it wasn't even the burns. It was just the chemicals that were like in the swamp. It created a sentient plant-based organism, and it had the consciousness of Alec Holland, of specifically Alec Holland. So when he came up, he literally thought that he was just deformed and whatever, but in reality, it was just a plant that that was shot into evolution.
A vegan version of Sasquatch.
Yes, a vegan version of Sasquatch, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's a great like analogy, I guess. But if you think about it, it's really strange. I always thought Swamp Thing was just some dude who fell in a swamp and whatever. Like that's how his powers happened. But the actual plant is what grafted Alec's soul consciousness onto its own like mind.
It created its own consciousness in a way, because it was like it was Alec. I mean, in a sense, it is Alec Holland, but in a plant body,
Yeah.
and they actually did that in the Swamp Thing series on DC Universe. It was really interesting because they had one of Swamp Thing's villains, Jason Woodrue, basically do a full dissection of Swamp Thing, and the consciousness is so strong that it created plant-based organs. So it had a heart, it had a liver, it had a kidney,
seaweeds, like
but
vines.
but it was like organic, like plant matter, and because the consciousness is so strong, it was like, okay, this is what a person's supposed to have, but
the human anatomy
obviously-
is still intact.
yeah,
But it's
That's
all
probably
but
why the
it's
Swamp Thing
totally-
maintained a humanoid form, right? 2 legs, 2 arms, standing
Exactly.
up.
exactly. It's best adaptation to replicate what a human is. Than than what it is, and it's really like, I don't know. I always found it like with Swamp Thing, it's very romantic in the way that So with Swamp Thing, there was a lot of different villains, but I want to take a moment to like talk about the love of his life, Abby Arcane, who was one of his enemy's nieces, and just I don't know. There was just in the writing, it just seemed like there was just unrestricted love for the earth and for this one woman. So the writing was very in depth and very like heartfelt. So when you read it, you weren't like, oh, I'm just reading another superhero comic, or I'm not reading like whatever. You were like, you felt for him because he was just this monstrous looking thing, but the love that he had was, I don't know, it was just such a great, like, it really, like, I felt, for me at least, it really pulled me in with that.
So is that like the original story of the Swamp Thing, or is that the reinterpretation or like DC's reboot, really? Because I don't remember, like, from what I know about Swamp Thing, I don't remember him having this like deep love for nature. I mean, obviously, it's what keeps him alive, right? As long as there's plant matter on the Earth, he can maintain his consciousness there.
He's essentially immortal. The way to kill Swamp Thing is to destroy the planet, because he is so connected within the green. So if there is one like little plant still alive,
like one shade of like one blade of grass.
yeah, his consciousness will be there, and he'll be able to, like, the way DC made it was he's an elemental force. He is an agent of Mother Nature, basically. He's there the enforcer of the planet Earth, and I'll actually address that because there's actually a really good story arc with sorry, just gotta check my notes. It's a lot of information, and I can't keep it all in my head. Okay. So one of his main villains is Anton Arcane, former Nazi, at the right side of Hitler, and this was in I believe, the saga of Swamp Thing.
Wait, so when does Swamp Thing actually take place chronologically? Like the origin story, from the origin story.
There is a Swamp Thing for pretty much every generation.
Okay.
So it's pretty spread out, but the longest run really started in the it started late 1970s, early 1980s.
Printing? Because I didn't mean like the printing of the books. I meant the like within the story.
Oh, within the story, well, I guess it was very time-based, so I would assume it was probably around the same time. I mean, it is around the same time, so they go back to the 1940s to develop the villain. So yeah, so I would say like probably around the late 1970s, 1980s. But so like I was saying, with this, with the underlying tones of deep love, he finds one of his greatest enemies, Anton Arcane, who was a former Nazi, and he was along the right side of Hitler. And basically his main goal was to stay alive as long as he could. Like, he wanted to prolong his life and be, basically an immortal. And in one story arc, he actually sends his own niece, like I said earlier, Abby Arcane, to hell to prolong his life.
Kind of like what Thanos did with Gamora for the Soul Stone.
Pretty much, he kills his niece to prolong his life, and Swamp Thing isn't like, like obviously he is heartbroken, and he's like, but he does something about it, which was an amazing thing. He actually, with the help of a few other mystical beings, which in his the DC Vertigo universe, he's very connected with like characters like John Constantine, Zatanna, and all these other like magical, like they're magical beings. I mean, I guess that's the easiest way to put it. But he actually incantation, like, and he goes down to hell, like physically goes down to hell to save the love of his life. If that's not undying love, then I really, I can't
Want to change it?
No, because that was for me when I was reading it. It was probably the most heartbreaking. I'm not a big crier, but that was
a couple of tears.
A couple tears did slide down the cheek. It was definitely one of the more heartbreaking and like emotion fueled comics I've ever read.
What struck out to you, like when you first saw Swamp Thing? You were like, "What the fuck is this thing?" Right? I mean, that's what I would be like. I'd be like, "Really? There's like a character named Swamp Thing?"
Yeah, like at first, like
and then read it,
Like first when I heard about Swamp Things, I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one, is it new? Or two was like, how did they create something that's like legitimate? I felt like it was like not like they didn't care about it. They didn't put much effort into it. Kind of like the name in the sense.
Yeah.
Swamp Thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's very like.
I mean,
let's make a name generator. Let's pick up like a superhero name generator and let's be Swamp and Thing. Yeah. Okay, let's go with that.
I like the simplicity of it though.
Do you?
like this. I mean, he is a Swamp Thing. He's like I don't know if
I mean that's the name for the organism, right? For the plant-based organism that was generated. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Swamp Thing. You know what I mean? There's no definitive way of.
It's a Swamp Thing.
I mean,
it's a Swamp Thing.
Oh, it's Plant Monster. No, that's like not a great hero.
No, it's Swamp Thing.
Plant Man, Vegan Mon.
God, it's like Captain Planet, and you want to hit Captain Planet with a baseball bat. He's just self-righteous, but I'm just saying, Swamp Thing was in. But I think there was a good
story, though. Yeah.
There's a little bit of a meaning back to it because it's like, I don't know, when you say Swamp Thing, it's somewhat of there's like a monstrous overtone to it. Like there's like a, you know what I mean?
Well, swamp is like dark and wet and dangerous usually. So
he definitely broods. I mean, he's a brooder like Batman, where he's just like, oh shit.
Yeah, well, people look at him, they fucking terrified and they run away. So like.
Yeah, I mean, in the original run of House of Secrets, the backstory is very different. The backstory was
it's weird.
Yeah, so Alec Olson, like the original, from the first appearance, Alec Olson was murdered by his lab partner.
No, so he wasn't murdered.
He was murdered.
Attempted murder.
Oh, okay. Attempted murder by his lab partner, who then chucked him in a swamp to try to, hook up with his wife. Hooked up with his wife, and then his Alec Olson's wife was like, I think you killed my, ex-husband, and and he was like, I gotta kill you now. So he's about to kill Alec Olson's ex-wife, and Swamp Thing comes in, murders him, murders his lab partner, and he was like, and like tried to like be like, oh, it's me, you should recognize me, I'm your husband or whatever.
Right.
And she was like, and he couldn't speak, so he would just like, he couldn't speak, so it was just like gargle and groans, and he's like, and she's like, oh my god, this is a monster, and just dips, and he just, And then they ended it with him walking back into the swamp
Yep.
alone. I was like,
Yep. That's it. That's the
"That's
tragic
a
story of
fucking
Swamp
hole
Thing.
in his brain." like that's like
Well,
horrible.
Would kill him.
I don't know. I don't know, but that was probably another sad moment in the Swamp Thing saga.
Well, like it's like I thought when he had the consciousness as a human, like that he would have like the ability, like a human
To speak. It
listen.
it took him a while. I mean, he can listen and he can understand.
Right.
Like he can process everything pretty normally,
He
but
just can't speak.
vocalizing everything was difficult.
So-
and that's like
What? Some vines got tangled in the voice box.
probably
Yeah.
that's probably what happened. I can't give you the biological,
Well,
explanation.
also, like, think about it this way: like the plant organism that is Swamp Thing doesn't have a full understanding of human anatomy. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
know about human anatomy.
That's-
I'm sure if
that's-
it studied it, like, it probably
It's
actually
a
could
plant's
start.
interpretation of what a person
Yeah.
is.
It's like a very, very low resolution rendering of the human body.
And
But I
CJ,
just want to take a moment. What?
what do you have in there? What are you drinking?
None of your business. It's my medicine.
Well, why not? We're on the show.
No, it's a little bit of a Diet Coke and some actors helpers aid, I guess. I don't really know.
confident boost.
Yeah, confidence booster. But yeah, so you guys got anything like I'm just because I can talk about more about the storyline. We can talk about powers. I mean, just
I
there's so-
wanted
so-
you to go into the Swamp Thing's abilities.
Yeah, like the
Okay.
powers, like kind of like okay. Of course, he was connected to the Mother Nature.
the green.
So regeneration was probably one of his key factors that he had.
Absolutely. So
So if you blew up his arm,
it would regenerate because he
Doesn't
can
care.
like he can, he can consciously regenerate anything. So as long as he has a connection to the green, because there are story arcs where he becomes like he is a god basically. He's an elemental. He is one of the key forces of the universe to protect
Mother
any
Nature.
yeah. And there are even story arcs where he learns to control other elements: fire, earth, air, water. Like
The next Avatar.
he would put the Avatar to shame because he's just connected and grown into it. Like it's insane. And one of the best parts about it was he can like expand himself. Like he can grow.
You can grow in size.
He can grow to like exponential size, like not exponential. Sorry,
No.
extraordinary sizes, as long as he is connected to the green. And Swamp Thing has really never not been connected to the green. He is the
It's not like he's going to fight you in the desert. He's going to fight you.
no, but he can. But he can fight you anywhere. There is a. There are theories and talked about. There's tiny algae in your body from the water that you drink.
Yeah.
Control that algae.
I remember that. I remember reading that.
He can just be like, all right, you're pissing me off. You drank water like an hour ago. All right, boom, fucking tree branch through your neck. I'm dead. And he is basically immortal, and I will pin him up against any superhero, and he will beat their ass.
Superman.
Absolutely. What?
Superman.
Definitely. Are you serious?
Yes.
100%. They both thrive on light, so if it's like
Superman just blows up the earth. All right, bye Swamp Thing.
yeah, but here's the thing: Superman's not going to be like, oh, I'm fighting Swamp Thing, so
Right.
I'm going to go to extreme measures and blow up the earth.
All right. Well, you can argue that if you want.
Yeah, like Superman is not going to destroy Earth because that's where he
Mm-hmm.
needs the yellow sun.
He needs the yellow sun, but if they fought underneath a red sun,
He would be normal.
he would be normal. Exactly. But both of them kind of thrive. I mean, plants thrive off of sunlight and stuff like that. So I mean, it's like essential for them to be both under the yellow sun. But I think, I mean, I don't know. He's got. I mean,
You're
if he
right.
really
He
to,
would-
boom, canopy, shade.
Yeah.
Technically, he could just.
He's like,
enclose
okay, I
him.
just blocked out your sunlight.
Yeah, he could just
then-
enclose, like make a ball,
Yeah.
like a hamster ball, put Superman in it.
I
I think
would,
he won't get out.
I would absolutely love to see that. Superman in a hamster ball of plants. Just what the fuck?
Like, how am I gonna get out of this? And there's no sunlight.
And he just makes it super dense, and he can keep regenerating,
and then just basically just close it in.
yeah.
That like
Yeah,
instead of
boom.
going outward, it's just kind of like caves him and kind of make it like a kind of like the carbonite, like kind of like
like
in,
Han Solo's carbonite. Yeah.
and just like kind of like compress him that he can't move and suffocate and dies.
I mean, see, boom. He just plant carbonite Superman.
All right. Well, you just gave them a story idea. Swamp Thing v Superman.
See, Evan, here's the thing. I think I should be writing DC shows and DC movies. I'm just
One
because
day.
there is literally no bigger fan of DC Comics than me.
Well, you hear that, folks.
Yeah, you heard it here. You
So
heard
Yeah,
it.
he's-
start writing letters to Warner Brothers and DC. Be like, hey,
We have someone.
this dick I saw on a podcast. He says he's better than all of you. So
Give him a shot, please.
yeah, maybe I'll get the Batman movies right.
Yeah.
No shade, because it
All
actually
right,
looks
besides
pretty decent.
regeneration,
Yeah.
and able to talk to basically control any plant,
Mhm.
matter, and
Mhm.
what else does he have?
Super strength.
Okay.
He has. I wouldn't call it telepathic ability. I wouldn't call it telepathic
Kind of like
abilities.
how like Aquaman talks to like the marine life.
Actually, in a sense, so he could touch trees or plants or anything like that, and
Does he
No,
like,
wait.
physically touch them, or he?
yeah, he physically touches.
He has
them.
to.
Yeah, he physically touches them and like becomes connected to them, and it's like eyewitness accounts of what happens. He's like, okay, I want to see what happened in his head, obviously, but he's like, okay, what happened this date, this time, whatever, and he'll be able to see everything, which I think is, pretty cool. I mean, if you go to a tree that's thousands of years
Just
old,
access his plant memory.
yeah. He's got pretty basic. Except for the elemental factors to it, but he's got pretty basic. He's not especially fast, but he's just strong. So start shooting him with bullets. He's, deflecting.
Yeah. Or like he's absorbing.
Or
the
it's just
bullets.
hitting it, and it's just like regeneration.
Yeah.
That's why he is the most powerful in DC Universe. And he deserves his own movie. I'll give you that one.
Well, I think it's trying to build a
Mhm.
case for him.
Yeah.
Try to build a following because
Yeah,
It's
a lot of
so-
people don't know about him, and I'm like really upset about that because I feel like for comic readers and non-comic readers, it's just a good read. It's just you're sitting there, and I blew through the saga of Swamp Thing. I just from the first issue, I was hooked, and I ripped through them.
Most of it is because there's like so many other great superheroes, and they also like those other superheroes get a lot more coverage. Obviously, you have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, and I feel like DC split into not two universes, but it's DC and DC Vertigo, where DC Vertigo goes very mystic, supernatural, and very like it's where you get your Constantines and all that stuff, and it's awesome. Like but that's a preference for me. I like the mystical, the magical, and the supernatural. And I do love DC, but I feel like straight DC, Batman, Superman, like you said, Green Lantern, and all them get so much more attention. And I'm not saying that their storylines are bad, but
it's just more mainstream.
Yeah,
People can relate to them
Exactly.
a lot more. And
Yeah.
it's- when you talk about superpowers, you talk about super speed, flight,
Mhm.
super strength, and Vertical is more like the magic,
Mhm.
the incantation, the mystic forces.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
not a lot of people do like because it's not the first idea of what kind of
It's not the
superpower.
first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking
No,
about like superhero
no,
comic.
but I will argue a lot of straight DC are just really upset orphans. Like, I mean, how many people can relate to
Upset.
Batman? I mean, Batman was and Batman's one of my favorite characters. I'm sporting the Batman sneaks right now, but he's one of my favorite characters. But also, he's a billionaire. He's a billionaire whose parents got shot, and he's like, I got to avenge them, and I totally get that. You know, go.
You can relate. You can relate to that, I think, on some level. And it's not so easy to relate to Swamp Thing.
No, but like when you try to
No,
like,
but I actually I'm gonna argue that with you because I think emotionally a lot of people can feel like Swamp Thing, especially people with like
emotionally yes, like but like
obviously they're not turning into plant.
yes, but like I
Yeah,
feel like
that's the part I'm talking about.
but like Batman, like you really want to look into Batman's like powers and whatever. There's no powers.
Yeah, Batman doesn't have powers.
No, he doesn't, but he's also got
Billions of dollars.
billions of dollars to
But, like, it
so
just
he can
gets-
travel to Nanda Parbat and train under freaking Ra's al Ghul. Like
No, but yes, but like in the fact that like people can relate to that because he doesn't have a superpower. He's more of a vigilante in a sense.
yeah.
Arrow. Arrow doesn't have any superpowers.
No, he's also a pissed off orphan.
Okay.
But,
Pissed off orphan, yeah.
like
It's-
listen,
It's people that I think how DC trying to
no, definitely DC. Like their main thing is I want a majority
you want to
of
feel
the heroes
connected.
to be, relatable.
Yes.
And people oriented. Like Barry Allen, super nerdy, awkward kind of person who just got blessed with abilities, but it was because he was so pure of heart. Like he
Yeah.
was such a good person that he was
He was
blessed
able-
with set abilities. So I don't really. I will say DC is more human than Marvel,
Yes.
but also I really do. I really do feel that Swamp Thing is probably more relatable. I mean, whether it is emotionally or like people who like I was a fat dude for a long time.
Okay, I was thinking about it like at a glance, right? So people who have no idea like about comics, the first
Yeah.
thing you're gonna go into is not gonna be Swamp Thing because it's such a minor
You
character.
want to
First thing
find somebody
you're
that
gonna
looks
be
normal and looks
Yeah.
humanoid and yeah.
Well,
That's
yeah, but like
I was trying to make. I wasn't arguing that like the storyline for
Mhm.
one is more emotionally relatable than XYZ or than
more
Swamp Thing.
relatable to Superman and Swamp Thing because yes, Superman it is an alien, but
Mhm.
he looks like human.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, yeah.
He just has a superpower because he's on a different sun. But if you put him on the red sun, he's just a normal
yeah.
human being.
I mean,
He's
they
just
did that-
technically-
They did that whole. They did a comic on back when Muhammad Ali was fighting, and they did Superman versus Muhammad Ali under a red sun. Muhammad Ali beat his ass. I'll tell you that one. It's actually really good. But I think I don't know. I just have more of an emotional connection. I think to Swamp Thing, and I
So is
think
there
definitely.
left that you want to talk about with Swamp Thing?
I mean, I can talk about a lot.
Okay, yeah, why not?
We can go into villains. I mean,
like anything else like you
Yeah,
really
yeah,
want about Swamp Thing, like
um,
Because we covered his origin, we covered kind of like
his
what
abilities.
generally his love interests and his abilities. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I guess the only thing that I would really go into. I mean, obviously, I suggest Swamp Thing to anybody, and I think there's
Does he do any more like with Swamp Things? Like, does he interact with other
I was gonna
superheroes?
ask that.
He's-
Does he
Yeah.
interact with other characters, or is he kind of like a loner?
So There is the Justice League Dark, which everybody knows who the JLA is. The Justice League of America, Batman, Superman, Aquaman, and all that stuff. But this is Justice League Dark. And Justice League Dark deals with anything that's mystical, multi-universal, like anything that's
John Constantine.
Zatanna. I can't think of his name right now, but he is like a conscious magical chimp who's
Okay. Magical chimp.
Actually, DC's doing a running series right now, which I've been collecting, and I'm all up to date, which I'm really happy about. But Justice League Dark, it's like part of the New 52, and Wonder Woman is actually involved with the Justice League Dark, and she's fighting these, all these mystical forces while Swamp Thing is like fighting it in another sense, really. But that's definitely, he's part of the Justice League Dark. And actually, there was one comic that we discussed earlier, before, is so the world. Picture this: the world's in peril. The world's, it's gonna die, and the Guardians of the Universe, the Lanterns, come, and they're like, "Oh man, we gotta help save the planet." And they were like, you know what? The only man to do it, or the only plant to do it the only being to do it is, Swamp Thing. So they all get together and they create the White Lanterns create a I wouldn't say synthetic Swamp Thing, but like a recreation of the Swamp Thing based on Alec Holland that would eventually gain the full consciousness of Alec Holland and be Alec Holland again.
Yeah.
But that was one of the greatest story arcs of it, because he is so important on a planetary and universal level that even the White Lanterns are like, hey,
we need him.
We need this guy.
Yeah, we need this plant.
Yeah, we need this plant.
Like, we need the Swamp Thing.
Yeah, we need the Swamp Thing, man. I mean, I guess I pleaded my case with everybody to start reading Swamp Thing, and
I think you really made your point clear. Like, hey, Swamp Thing is good. Y'all should read it.
Yeah, you guys should read it and try to get a second season out of Swamp Thing on DC Universe. But
yeah.
We'll
see. I mean, if the first season performs well, obviously that's a good sign.
I'm sorry to tell you, my friend, but after the first episode, they canceled for the second season.
Oh, okay.
Not because of performance. I will say that, not because of performance. It was a fantastic show. Everything was done really well.
Right.
They were filming in North Hollywood and spent like millions of dollars on location. And they were just like, why are we going to spend all this money? And they're like, all right.
Filming in North Hollywood. All right, well, anyway.
Yeah, do it in Louisiana or like.
That's what I'm saying.
Like in the South.
That's what I'm saying. But that's just what I heard from,
Why, the reasons.
Yeah.
Probably doing it like on a set or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, most of the series, I mean, is literally filmed out in the swamp. I mean, it's not much of a town where you're like, oh wow, it's not like Gotham City where you're like, oh, it's such a vast place or whatever. Yeah, like, it's a freaking small town in Louisiana. It's like 6 buildings and a dock.
And the 6 buildings are all bomb and bad stops.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, guys, that was Swamp Thing. And again, CJ, thanks for joining us on this episode. We're actually going to make this into a mini-series, kind of like a segment on the show. We're going to cover different comic book heroes, comic book stories. And for the first couple of ones, they might be a little long because we kind of brought stories and prepared for them. But going forward, just random characters we could probably end up talking about. Maybe like 5-10 minute quickie, like backstory, origin, and then cover another character or whatever. But we'll see how it goes from here. And listeners, please send us your content suggestions. Tell us like what you think about this episode and also our other episodes that are going to be coming out that we do on other characters. Just let us know if what we're doing here is entertaining or useful or both for you. We really want to hear from our listeners.
What's your submission and what topic you guys want us to talk about as well.
Yeah,
And
you can email
put
us
it
at
to our
Trading
affiliate.
Brains Podcast, tradingbrainspodcast@gmail.com. Or just comment on social media. You know, we post on Twitter, Facebook, and
Yeah,
see
that's
on
right.
YouTube videos too. So
I saw this guy CJ, and he's pretty dope. So
yeah, CJ
You
Nelson,
bring-
he's pretty cool.
Super
He's an
right.
author.
It's like
Yeah.
super hard.
Well, CJ and I are actually working on our book together, The Forgotten Few, which should be coming out early next month, and we're really excited for it. And we really hope that the listeners of Trading Brains will also get a copy of their own once we release the book.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, and we're gonna keep putting out more content. And CJ is also head of Rebel, so CJ, if you want to give in a few words about Rebel itself.
Yeah,
On.
Rebel Publications and Productions, one of the many partners of our good friends here at Trading Brains. We really want to help other people who have been struggling to get their content out there, books, podcasts, anything you really feel like is worth something. We know that it's worth something because it is so unique to you, and it definitely deserves, somebody to be back to back you guys and say, hey, it's worth it, man.
Right. So what kind of people specifically would you ask to, or would you say are likely to reach out to Rebel? Like, what can Rebel do for artists or people who are writers?
Rebel can help you A to Z. We have so many people to help you. Just specifically, I'm a writer, so I'm basically going to be helping you get from point A. From it could be just an idea, or you have a rough draft or anything, and I will help you guys get to the end and have a published work and have. We're really here to say that we believe in you because as a writer, I've felt the horrible sting of rejection a couple hundred times, and
we have been.
I feel like it's just so unjustified because I feel like everybody's got a good story or painting or something good.
Everybody
to say.
can have a good story. At least I feel. I think it takes time, and it's like forging something. You have to really just take the time and work at it.
It's like forging a sword or forging metal. You really gotta hit it a couple hundred times before it turns out the way that you like. And sometimes you're not sure. As somebody who wrote and had no guidance, you don't know where to hit. Sometimes it's so hard to just, I don't know.
We'll try to help you out and targeting the right
audience, targeting marketing it to the certain
and if you're open to it, even creative process assistance, really helping make the story more compelling or make sure that it's.
And we get submissions quite a bit, and I can't say for everybody, but I personally sat down for at least 65% of them and did it myself. You're always going to get the individual attention that your work deserves, and it's never somebody that I wouldn't trust to do it. It's going to be somebody who's good at what they do, and it's going to give you good notes, and we'll work with you. I feel like Rebel is more than just a publication company. It's a guiding hand in helping the people who feel like I've gotten so many rejection letters, or I haven't gotten to this specific art studio because they don't believe my work is worth anything, or comics or anything like that. And we say, take a breath. Your work is absolutely worth it. We will help you. It's going to take time. It's going to be. I can't say that it's going to be an easy process, but we're going to sit with you. And we're investing our time in you. And we want you to succeed. We want your work to be out there. So with that, I would say Rebel is somewhat a beacon of hope for those who feel like they're hopeless.
Okay.
All right. And with that, listeners, anybody who is looking for that kind of platform to help them get to the next level with their writing or what have you, just find Rebel at on Facebook, and also there's a website up which we're going to include both the Facebook page and anything else related to Rebel in the description below in the YouTube. So again, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.